do that today. It's come up several times. This is moving now into what we're going to be doing for next week and what our work is for the upcoming week. Several times. Well, I need to say one other thing first. By the same token that the content of our consciousness is our experience, if our consciousness is on kid or kid work, then our experience will be kid and kid work, okay? Doing kid work is making kid work and kid part of your experience, is sustaining kid, is creating kid, is etching it into your consciousness. So we are absolutely going to stop doing kid work in this workshop. We're going to take it at a whole new level. And the first change that we need to start getting into is a vocabulary change. So let's start, those of us who've been around before, the new people won't have this problem, but those of us who've been around the block a few times, let's drop the habit of saying my kid, blah, 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 because I've just created and established a kid, okay? And the fact is that what we called kid is just my traumatic fear, okay? So the correct statement is not my kid, blah, blah, blah. The correct statement is I'm afraid, blah, 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 okay? So let's just make that change. Talk about I have the fear to do this, and it's not my kids doing it. I'm doing this, I'm afraid to do this, my fear is this, and let's take full possession of this as part of the content of my consciousness. The kid is not something external that I need to work with. The kid is just a fear belief in my consciousness. There's no being out there, there's no external separate psychological manifestation out there. My kid is just my deep fear of a particular event coming to pass. So let's begin practicing using the vocabulary me and mine and I and I'm afraid and stuff like that rather than my kid, just to start breaking that habit. Okay. One of the reasons that the work never gets completed is because we never learn to recognize when we're not in kid, when we're having emotion. Okay, being in kid means having emotion. Okay? In order to successfully see through the script, to see the script clearly and manage the script clearly and then eventually break it up, we need to know when we're in emotion. We need to always know when we're in emotion. And this week's work is about how to recognize that. We need to always recognize and catch when script is in gear and are about to be in gear. And script is in gear. If we're in emotion, script is in gear. We're having a script event. If we're having any emotion, if there's any drama going on right now, I'm having a script event. And I can look at it and see what that script event is. It should be on my list. If it's not, I'll add it. And if I hear you telling me that I'll never be accepted, you're unacceptable, and I have any reaction to it at all, I'm having a script event. Okay, the reaction is the script event. And in fact, any time that I'm having a reaction to anything, a reaction rather than a flowing response, a reaction to it, if I'm having a reaction, I'm having a script event. And there's one other case that we will want to learn, especially the people who've been around a little bit. All those situations in which I feel uncomfortable have script involved in them. It may not be my script, it may be yours, but whenever I'm uncomfortable with you. There's script going on. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more in a few minutes. And finally, and the primary piece of thing we can learn to recognize to help us recognize when we're in emotion is what we call the glitch in this workshop. Script means that I'm in death fear. I'm starting to panic is what script means. Going into script means I'm starting to panic. And when I start to panic, my physical mechanism, with nothing to do with my thinking or my spirituality or anything, my physical mechanism when I start to panic is going to go into the fight or flight syndrome. Okay? It's going to change physically. And my pulse rate is going to go up, what's going to happen is my capillaries are going to clamp down like that, my blood pressure is going to double, the adrenaline is going to eject, and in my case I feel a crank right here in my solar plexus. It feels like somebody grabbed my solar plexus and said, and turned it, and I'm ready to fight or run, okay? And that happens like in 5 seconds. And we all have that because it's physical, it's part of the physical experience of the human being experience. And if you can learn to recognize that, the homework, first piece of homework, is find out what that feels like for you. Learn to recognize the glitch. I'll call it the glitch. And some people get short of breath, and some people stop breathing, some people hold their breath, some people get flushed in their face, we all probably feel our blood pressure go up, although it may have different feelings, but there is a physical thing that happens in your body when you're becoming afraid that your script is going to be read.
Feel like you're going to throw up.
Yeah, there's a good one. Perfect. She said feels like she's going to throw up. Now, what's important about this is if I can learn what that is, then I want to learn to always catch it when it's happening, because right there where it's happening, where my stomach goes like this, where the solar plexus glitches, right there where it's happening, I have a window in which I can look at it or ignore it, okay? If I can recognize that my script is coming into gear, right then I can stop and take a look at it. I can say, whoa, and as I said earlier, I can say, oh, that's interesting, which is my response right now when I feel this spot turn a little bit. I say, oh, that's interesting, what's going on? Because I realize it's going to be an opportunity for me to find some other piece of work I need to do, some other piece of personal sense that needs to be get rid of. There's still a affair down there that hasn't been completely dealt with. So we want to learn what the glitch feels like, and then we want to develop the presence to never miss it. And that's the important thing is we want to get to where we never miss the glitch, where we always catch it, and that requires being present, and being present for most of us requires spiritual growth. So that's one of the areas in which the spiritual growth will become an important tool. To be constantly here, now, is all I mean by being present. Because if I'm thinking about something, the glitch can happen. I was listening to a tape that Barbara was talking to a class that had done the script and kid work 3 years earlier, and her comment is, I am amazed that most of you don't even know when you're in emotion. While you're in emotion, most of you still don't even know that you're in emotion, okay? And if you are in emotion and don't know you're in emotion, you're not going to get this work done, because you're already down the proverbial creek without the paddle. And the way to not be in emotion is to catch the glitch when it happens. This is all in the Script and Kid Handbook. This is the week 2 stuff, steps 1 and 2. And we are going to do the first 5 steps of script work, just in straight order, so you can pretty much read. In fact, I want you to read all the stuff that's in this book under there's 6 pages in the handbook, and I don't know how many pages in the PDF on the week 2. Yes?
So I'm understanding that we are to be recognizing when we have our own glitch.
Yeah.
What is there an appropriate response to when you recognize the person who has their glitch?
Eventually there will be, yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean, that, in fact, we'll touch on that a little bit just in a minute or two. That's part of it. But primarily, learn what your own glitch is and learn to recognize it so that when it happens, you are aware in that minute. The problem is that when your glitch happens, you got like 5 to catch it and notice it and start looking at it instead of being caught up in it. And if you're looking at it, the event is like 40% of what it's going to be if you get caught up in it, or 20% or 5%. Okay, so that, I want you to look at the week 2 stuff in the book. Step 1 is recognition, and we're really talking about recognizing the glitch. Step 2 is analysis, which is really what you're talking about, Mimi. I said that when you're uncomfortable, somebody's in script, and analysis is the stuff about determining whose script it is, and that's awfully pretentious, I think, to devote a whole step to analysis. But the fact is, if you're uncomfortable, there's script going on. And if I'm having emotion, it's my script. And if you're having emotion, if the person I'm talking to, my husband or wife, is having emotion, it's her script, okay? And if we're both emotional, we're both in script, okay? It's just that simple. I don't think we really need to devote a week and a step to it. It's very simple. So if I'm uncomfortable, feeling uncomfortable, and I'm not in emotion myself, not emotional, what I can do is look at you, because you probably are in script. What I'm probably feeling is the pressure of your resistance behavior or your script trying to get me to read it, because your consciousness is trying to be your experience through me. So if I'm uncomfortable, and then I need to look at whoever I'm dealing with and see if they're not in script. And it's not so important to know necessarily what their glitch is as it is to recognize that they're in script. And if you know what their script is, then it's especially nice, because then you can take steps to not read it. But the rule is, if I'm in emotion, it's my script. If he or she's in emotion, it's her script. If we're both in emotion, we're both in script. And just a little aside, if we're both in script, the only productive thing we can do at this point is split. Because no progress is going to be made, no resolution, nothing's going to happen except escalation until at least one person is in their center in spiritual adult, has a little bit of God consciousness going on. So that's the real reason for the analysis. The kindest thing you can do when you recognize or suspect that somebody else is in script, the kindest thing you can do is not read it. And if you don't know what their script is, then the sort of the yardstick is try not to do anything overt that might be taken as rejection. And of course, they may well insist on having their script read, because there are people who are perfectly capable of taking any behavior as reading their script, because they're reading it to themselves, of course, okay? But that's what it is. So read the step 1 in here and read step 2, and there's a thing here about recognizing when others are in script. We used to read this stuff in class, but I don't think it did much good to read it in class. I think it does much more good to read it yourself at home quietly. In fact, I would recommend reading the work, which is typically 3 or 4 pages or 5 or 6 pages, reading it every day or every couple of days. Go back over it and review it and see what it is we're doing. Remind yourself of what's going on. Keep it right at the front of your consciousness. So,
Hey, can I say something real
please, Luke, please.
And I started the work before my partner did, but we were both in program. I know there's like a mix of people here, and it was helpful for me to use the reference of it's a spiritual axiom that whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me, to try to bring that back. And then also, you know, the solution is that I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition.
Absolutely.
In the solution, you know, so, because, you know, I made the mistake of going home and throwing around the language, and that just escalated the situation. Like, you're in script, you know.
What script was that the resistance behavior for? Yeah, see? That's what happens when we take our own resistance behavior. But yeah, wonderful. And in fact, we don't have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual work. We have a momentary reprieve based on our spiritual work. And when you're in a potential script event, you better have done and be doing your spiritual work, because the way you're going to survive a script situation is to stay in your center. When I say stay in your center, I mean stay in spiritual adult, which is a term you found here. I mean stay aware of the presence of God is what I really mean. I mean sit here in your Zen master center, unperturbable, feeling the peace, feeling the harmony, feeling the rhythm. That's the way to completely avoid script events. Yes?
I'm sure it's a really quick story.
Yeah, go for it.
Only because part of it is there's part of me that wants to, like, I'm excited about this work and how far I've come. Because I was looking through it, I'm like, it's doing pretty well. And I was having this day yesterday where I was just clumsy. I fall and I hurt my knee, and my son put something, it dropped down my foot, it's all swollen, and I went to the dog park, and I was getting kind of like, what? You know, I hit my head, it was just like all this stuff. And so as I went to the dog park, my dog took off, and I started saying some scripture. Like I read the Bible, and I just said a few things like, you know, trust in God, blah, blah, blah. And I just started saying that scripture, and that's been helping me. It's just like the words. Instead of like, you idiot, you did it, I'm like, stop, let's go there. And so as I was walking, I'm actually surprised I'm talking about myself, which is awareness. As I was walking in there, this fight broke out between all of these dogs. They're screaming, yelling, and all of a sudden, 4 people were screaming at each other, and I'm on the other side of the park. No idea why. I walked into this entire thing and just kept going, and people going, walk away, walk away, walk away. All of a sudden, I got everybody to walk away, and these 2 people, these 2 men were screaming at each other, and I got them all kind of walked away, and this one woman just kept screaming and screaming and screaming. One guy started to walk away, and I kind of was in the middle of it, and then he started going towards the guy like he was going to fight him. I stepped in front of this man. I could have gotten really hurt. I stepped and I stopped him, and I grabbed his shirt, and I said, look at me, look at me. So I said, everything's okay, walk away. And he just stopped it. Okay. And he walked away. And he walked away, and I turned, I'm sorry to stand there, I turned around, and there were these 3 or 4 women that I know, because everybody all of a sudden just walked away, and I turned towards them, and 4 of them were like standing looking at me like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I walked up and they go, what made you do that? I go, I have absolutely no idea. They said, did you know what to do? I go, no. And I finally said, that wasn't me. I said, that was God. I mean, I had a presence because I would have never stepped into a fight between 2 men and said, you know, hey. And so it was the craziest thing that I've ever, like, it was such a high. Because I was so calm the whole time. And then they started screaming again. Like, are you okay? Everyone. And it was just like, I remember like kind of when I was coming out of it, I'm like, I was in God and coming out going, man, that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because literally people kept coming up going, you were the hero today, you realize that? And then the part of me was like, yeah, let's see here. I went home and told Ronnie, he wasn't so impressed. He's like, why would you get it for the 2-man fighting? I'm like, okay, you don't get it. But anyway, so it's just a really great experience in the end.
See, when you're in your center, what happens is you respond to the situation appropriately rather than reacting to it. And that's what happened is you were in your center, you were in touch with God, you had some presence, and if you are there and don't let your head fire up, the result is the correct response rather than a reaction in a script event and getting beat up. And the fact that you were a Zen master is why you didn't get in any trouble, because Zen masters don't get in trouble.
And it didn't cross my mind at all that it ever hurt me.
Nope.
You could have gotten fired.
No, never could have happened. Not possible. Never could have happened.
That didn't cross my mind for a second anyway.
I'm going to add one more thing. When you read this stuff in the book, there's 5 steps of the homework. The 5th point of the homework is to begin a nightly inventory practice, and this will help you with your script work, and it will help you with your glitch. At the end of the day, at some point that's convenient, sit down and review your day. Think back over it, and what you're doing now is not looking for the cases, you know, AA people, don't worry about it. We're not looking for the cases where we were wrong and need to make amends. What we're looking for is the cases where we were emotional. Okay? Look for the cases where you were, you know, look for the emotional scenarios in the immediate day that you're still sitting in. All right? And then think back over that and see if you can discover what it was you were believing. What story were you telling you about the situation? Why were you in emotion? What was going on? What were you afraid of? What was the story you were telling yourself about it? The fact is you were afraid of something. But see if you can identify why you were in emotion. And you can sort of ask yourself, how did you feel? You know, it will be a childish emotion. You'll have been defensive or something like that. See if you can think back over that and discover and think about why it was, what was going on there. What did you think was going on, or what were you afraid of that was going on? And then if you can, one more second, if you can then think back just a little bit further and see if you could identify when the glitch hit you before that happened. See if you can think back to the start of that. When did you take that, that first sucking into your breath or whatever, when you were afraid, before you went into emotion. See if you can go back and think and identify that situation. So if you do this, it will help clarify your script list, and it will help clarify your glitch. And if you were afraid of something that's not on your script list, well, then it should be. And it's like that. Yes?
Oh, I think you answered it, because I was going to say, when you said make an inventory of when you're emotional, I was wondering, good emotion too, like emotional, happy?
Emotional is emotional. It's all drama. There are no useful emotions. And I'm not talking about females. Remember, read the appendix on the difference between emotion and feelings. Before something is happening, here's a good one, yeah. If somebody's pushing me off a cliff, that fear is perfectly natural, okay? But if I'm afraid that something is going to happen, then I'm telling myself a story about what's going to happen, okay? And that's the kind of fear we're talking about to look at. What did I think was going to happen? And that's what I do invariably. What's going on here? What am I afraid of? What does it look like is going to happen? How am I threatened? Am I going to be embarrassed? Am I going to be laughed at? Am I going to be abandoned? Am I going to be whatever? The question is, if I'm emotional, then I'm telling myself a story about the situation. There is a dialogue. That's the definition of emotion. I'm making a drama out of the situation, and the question is, what do I think is going on? What am I afraid is happening? And that belongs on your script list. That's all. And if you can, and it doesn't say this in the book, but if you can, think back to where that incident started and see if you can remember how you felt right at the beginning of that, because that might help you identify the glitch and get familiar with it. And there might be more, by the way, the glitch may not be a unique thing. I always talk about the glitch because for me it's always the solar plexus going, but other things happen too. It's just that this one is so clear and so obvious, and I've trained myself that I never miss it. So this is my glitch, but it may be a conjunction of several things. But you'll feel it, because the body is preparing to fight, getting ready to, muscles are tensing or whatever. Let's see, that may be it. Oh, and if you can, people that have done this work before, two more things. People who have done the work before, see if you can find a situation and see if you can identify a situation in which you were with somebody who was in script when you weren't. See if you can recognize that uncomfortable feeling. I finally Barbara talked about that, I finally became aware of it, when I find myself, I'm in AA too, and I find myself in AA meetings avoiding certain people, and not because they can possibly harm me or do anything, but somebody walks into the room and I just sort of, sidle down the aisle to somewhere else or something like this, and because I was uncomfortable. And this is what it means when it said if you're uncomfortable, there's script going on, and certain people, I finally accepted the fact, certain people just used to make me uncomfortable, okay? And the reason they're making me uncomfortable is that they're radiating their script, and they're probably coming at me with a resistance behavior, and they, it looks like they're needy or wanting or whatever the hell the resistance behavior is. And I finally identified what that is, and now I can just look at the person, instead of ducking the person, I can just say, he's having a script event. and see if there's something kind and loving I can do about it. You know, it just changes the whole energy. So see if you can identify a situation in which you were dealing with somebody who was in script when you weren't. And the other thing for people who are not on the first time through find your glitch. But those of you who know your glitch, okay, that's a good test, yeah. If you're not familiar with your glitch and are sure that's my glitch and it happens every time and you know what it is, then find that and work on that. But if you know what your glitch is, find out what the presence of God feels like. What does your body feel like when you're experiencing the presence of God, when the peace that passeth all understanding descends upon you, as they say in some gospel? Somebody I was talking with said that, when she reads Hafid's ecstatic poetry, there's this wonderful feeling, okay? All right, that's it. But my body has a distinct feeling to it when I'm experiencing the presence of God. I mean, there's an distinct feeling. For me, it feels like a little bit of light wind on the hairs on my arm or something like that. There's a little bit of a buzz. My cells have a little bit of buzz, and if there's a lot of presence, then every cell in my body is buzzing, okay? But there's a distinct physical feeling that is the way I experience the presence of God materially and humanly. And those of you who are locked into your glitch and know what that is, see if you can discover what the presence feels like to you. And we'll work on that next week. We got an exercise we'll do next week that maybe we'll introduce some of you to that feeling. Or not. All right, that's everything I got. Any questions or anything else anybody wants to say or needs to say, or questions, clarities?
Quick question.
Yes.
Backing up a little, you said when you saw certain people and you died on the aisle or whatever, were you able to change your reaction? And you said something to the effect of, now that you saw that was their script and yours, then you maybe you could do something else. Yeah, the minute I recognized what it was, then my behavior changed entirely. Now suddenly there's compassion. Okay.
Oh, this poor son of a bitch is in script like I was for 40 years, Suddenly there's just compassion. Now, I still don't want to hang out with the dude, because people who are in script and blessing you with their resistance behavior are not fun to hang with. But I can at least be compassionate and not read his script and show him that his script is not getting read in this moment.
Change your behavior just by noticing.
That's all it took, just recognizing. I did not change I was not able to change my behavior as a result of noticing. My behavior changed. It changed as a result of recognizing the fact that the person was in script, as understanding it. Don't think that Lee changed his behavior. That's never happened. Lee's behavior changes as a result of realizations that he has. And what I realized was that was a man in script. Man having a script event. And suddenly I was filled with compassion rather than avoidance. Oh, and one other thing. 2 people, we talked about the list of love, hate, fear, and desire last week. And 2 or 3 people wanted to know about love. How come love's on that list? And I said it was human love, and that belongs on that list. And they want to know, how do you really know the difference? And what I was given the other morning is that if I love you because of anything you do, or because of anything I get from you, or because of anything I want from you, it's human love. Which is a tough list, but this is truth. And if I want to know if it's the love of God pouring through me for you, then a simple question is there anything you can do that will change my love for you? And if I love you, regardless of anything you can do to me or anybody, then that does not belong on the list. Sorry about that. Say again? I said, if there is nothing you can do that will change my love, then it's the love of God pouring through.
So the love list is a list of,
We'll go back to last week's class and listen to, that was a whole list of stuff about love, hate, fear, and desire as the things that are attaching us to personal sense.
okay.
All right? All right, let's just be centered for 1 minute. Okay, thanks very much. I love you all. See you next week.